Hello, family members. I have a little bit different video for you today. Uh, as many of you may already be aware, April 20th is considered the unofficial stoner holiday. And so, in celebration of that day, I thought it might be a good idea to do a little bit of a primer for medical cannabis users who are maybe not that familiar with medical cannabis. So let's get into it. Now, the first time that I did medical cannabis was a few years back when I had cancer. And it's a lot easier here in Florida than it was then. It was a lot more restrictive. This time around, when I got sick again and I reapplied, the process for application was basically the same. But the biggest difference is the variety of products that are available and the convoluted rules that the Florida legislature has put in place to try to make it difficult to use medical cannabis, even though that's, something that the state voted in that we wanted. But anyway, so the first thing that you'll have to know is that it is not an inexpensive process or, or necessarily a quick process to get medical cannabis, but it's not that hard. Right now, while medical cannabis is still a thing and recreational cannabis is not available in Florida, the way that it works here is that you go see a cannabis doctor. This wouldn't be your normal doctor. There are various services that do the medical doctor part for you, essentially. They match up with the doctor, help you get an appointment. Uh, I use Canna MD, and I really like how good they are about like reminding you when it's time to re up and such, because it's a complicated process and it's easy to forget. So, what'll happen is you call them up, make your appointment. At the time that you make the appointment, you must pay up front for the visit. And I think it's like $250 now. I'm not entirely certain. And it may be different for different doctors and doctor services. But then once you actually see the doctor will talk to you. In my experience, they're very helpful. They specialize just in this. They're going to be really honest with you what they think that cannabis can or can't do for you medically. Talk about different symptoms. They're going to want to get into like a lot of details sometimes. There's things called terpenes that people really focus a lot on. I've never really noticed a huge difference there. And so I don't really pay that much attention to all that. But any questions that you have, your cannabis doctor is going to be really happy to answer them for you. And they're going to have a lot of information they can give you. Usually they'll have handouts they can give you. It's a really, welcoming process that is really, you know, I think friendly to new users. So once you've done that and you've got the cannabis doctors to sign off, yeah, this is a good idea for you, they'll set the amount that you're allowed to have per month. Well, not month. We'll get into that. It's like I said, it's ridiculous here in Florida. And then you have to pay the state. You'll prove your residency. If you have a Florida's driver's license, this part's really easy. If you're a snowbird, you can still do this as long as you can, confirm that you're here like more than half the year. But it's a little bit more of an involved process. You have to have a little bit more, documentation that you are a resident in order to complete that process. But it's possible. Um, and once you have gotten that approve or application in and paid your fee again up front, then usually fairly quickly you'll get your response back and your card will be active. They do send you a physical card in the mail. You don't have to wait till you have it in order to use it. You just need the number from the card, which is something that you can actually get on their website. The Florida Medical Cannabis website is a mess, but it is pretty easy to get your card information. And when it comes to the amount that you're allowed to have, in Florida, the way they do it is it's a 35-day rolling um, period. So, what that means is if I were to buy everything I'm allowed to buy today, I couldn't buy again until 35 days have passed. Now, there on top of that, you also have like a specific time frame. So like my day might be on the calendar for today, but if I don't buy until next week, that 35-day rolling period doesn't start until I buy. But the calendar day does start then. And so then the next calendar day will go. And so it's extremely hard to parse what your available amounts are. And so they have, when you go, you can expand for each, calendar period. There's something that says see calculation, and then you can get the exact amount that you can buy, when things are expiring. Um, if you used a mobile device to access that website, you have to go into landscape mode, not portrait mode, in order to be able to actually read it. It's not very user friendly, but at least the information is there once you dig around a little. So, um, all that to say, that's the sort of background of getting to the point where you can actually get medical cannabis. And so let's talk about what you do with it once you have it. Now, generally, there's three different kinds of cannabis. There's sativa, indica, and a hybrid of the both. Sativa is generally the stuff that you would use during the day when you need energy. And indica is couch when you want to like go to sleep or relax. Um, some people don't necessarily get that same result. Like for me, sativa really makes me sleepy, which is not, I guess, typical, but you might want to try them different varieties and see how you react. What I look for when I'm buying marijuana is I look for the uh, type, like how it is delivered. There's ground flower. There's just raw flower. There's some premium flower. There's all different kinds like that. I look for the THC percentage, which is the potency of the particular flower, and then um, what I'll also pay attention to occasionally is strains. Now, most of the time, I think that marketing is the main reason things are named the way they are. For example, you might see something that says cherry party, and it doesn't necessarily taste like cherry. Uh, Occasionally, you'll come across certain strains that do. Like, there's a strain that's been common in this area recently called lemon zest. That's a very like fresh, not necessarily lemon flavor, but I'd say it's zesty for sure. And it's really delicious. And so I'll look for that particular strain sometimes, but I don't necessarily look at the name of the strains all that often. Now, the way that marijuana will be packaged will be different from dispensary to dispensary. This, for example, is a little bit of the lemon zest, as I mentioned. It's just premium flower, and they have like security packaging. It's complicated to open and close. What I do when I get these types of packages is I just cut them open, and then I will repurpose packaging that I had previously to put it in. Now, when I do that, the law in Florida is that you have to keep these stickers on that they come with, and so I just transfer the stickers from one packaging to the other to keep it legal. So I prefer to get ground flour. It's less expensive, and also sometimes my hands hurt and grinding can be a bit of a pain, but it's always good to have a good grinder. Now I select metal grinders. You can get plastic grinders, they're cheaper, but they're way more likely to break on you pretty quickly. Metal grinders are going to last you a little bit longer. One thing that you do have to keep in mind with them is that you do need to clean them occasionally. The areas around here where it kind of rotates will sometimes get a little gummed up, and I just use little like alcohol wipes and I'll just clean that off. Another thing is with these, you'll see in the center, there'll be a larger post. Usually that's magnetic closure. Make sure you don't put your flour here in the center or it'll just get stuck up and you won't get a good grind. So you'll just put your flour in there, give it a good few twists, open it up, and then you'll have your ground flour there that's ready to use. Now, you'll also see grinders that have 3 chambers that have like a screen in the bottom. The purpose of that is that it allows the little tiny crystals called keef, which is sort of a concentrate, to fall down in the bottom and allow you to collect it. Then you can use it later on. I don't really care about that one way or the other because with this, I feel like the keef just stays on and it doesn't fall off and you just smoke it, right? So that's what I prefer. Now, what I also did, like with that first lemon zest, is I ground up the entire container and just put it in here, and then I don't have to grind every time that I want to smoke. So this is ground flour. Now, different brands have different things. There's a dispensary called Sunnyside that has what they call shake that's really good. Sortera that is here local, I buy from them a lot. They have ground flour. Usually when I get that, what I do is I grind it anyway, because there's sometimes big chunks, and if you're like rolling a joint, that can puncture the paper. And so I like to do that in order to make sure that it's not going to happen to me. I don't want to, because when you're rolling a joint, you want it to have a nice tight seal. Now, the way that I tend to roll joints is with a rolling machine. There are lots of different ways to roll. You can just roll by hand. You can roll using a dollar bill, like you put the paper in the dollar bill, and you can use, there's cones that you can buy that they're all rolled up and you just put the weed in, tie it off at the end. You can buy pre-rolled joints. That's often an option. Or, you don't have to smoke while rolling at all. If that's something that you find intimidating, there's always pipes that are available. Now, glass pipes are going to give you the best flavor. Metal pipes are good for like traveling if you're concerned that it might break, or that if you're going to say maybe fly somewhere and you don't think you'll be able to take it with you, that definitely helps to have that as an option. But at home, or most of the time, you're going to want to use a glass pipe. Now, I like glass pipes like this. They're really thick. You can get cheap glass pipes these days very easily, usually at flea markets. That you'll find them sometimes gas stations, things like that. If you can, though, finding an artisan that makes them, you're going to get nicer, more solid pipes that'll last you a lot longer. Now, again, like with your grinder, you got to clean it. Cleaning the inside of a pipe can be a little bit more complicated. There are different products that you can use. One thing that I used to use, it's pretty simple, rubbing alcohol and salt in a baggie and you just shake it. You can use hot water, because what you're seeing here is what we call resin, and it's basically the sort of concentrate of the marijuana sort of melts and then solidifies there. And so um, with that, you have to clean that off occasionally. That's why you'll see this pipe right here. See how the end, which is cleaner, has a lighter coloration than the part that's darker, that's got a little bit more accumulation of resin in it. Now, when I was young and cheap, I used to scrape this out using like you get like a paper clip and you pull it straight and you use it to scrape, scrape, scrape. I'm sorry. The benefit of that is that as it falls out, you can collect it up and then you can smoke it. It tastes terrible, but it does the job. So, like when you're young and desperate, you might do that. I haven't done that in a long time, to be honest. Most of the time, what I do is I roll joints. And to that end, I have this lovely little rolling tray that I use. It has a magnetic lid because I have cats and I don't want them to knock over my tray and get everything everywhere. It's good to use a tray, or if not a tray, at least like a magazine, something that's not porous that you can use to roll on, because in the process you're going to get little crumbs. If you look at my rolling tray, you'll probably see there's lots of little crumbs all over it. And then you can collect those up at some point and actually, use what I call tray weed to make something. Now, this is a little tool that I haven't had very long, but I absolutely love it. It's called a concentrate loader. Can you see that? I don't know. Concentrate loader. I got it from my dispensary, and it's got silicone on both tips, and it's good for loading concentrates like the keef that I mentioned. There's all sorts of different things like hash, wax, crumble. I don't know too much about those, but I use this for loading weed in the tray, for distributing it, all sorts of different things. Another tool that I use all the time is just a simple pair of tweezers. There's just a lot of things you could do with it. This can be good for loading weed, just the flat end there. Weed or concentrates. It can be used for, spreading things. Um, Another thing that's very useful is a rolling card. Now, you can just use like a regular credit card or any sort of card like this. The one thing you'll see, this one's kind of messy, so I probably ought to get the rubbing alcohol out and clean it off at some point. But it came free with my tray, and so I'm like, why not? I try to reuse things as much as I can, because there's a lot of waste that comes with medical marijuana. So mitigating that in any way is a very good thing. With the rolling machine, what I do is I use a very long rolling machine. Normal rolling machines may be like that big, but I use a long one because I found that it lasts a lot longer if you get a long one. Instead of putting weed all the way from end to end, you use these filters. So what I'll do is I'll put filters on both ends. And then that way, when it rolls, you're not getting stress on one side more than the other, because that's usually what's going to break down your rolling machines. The rolling machine I have here is by the manufacturing company Raw. I also like Elements and Zigzag make good rolling machines. I do think that those last longer. This just happens to be the one that I have right now. But I do think that it really helps if you put those and make it a uniform, width all the way through. That way you're not getting stress on this. This part of the rolling machine, usually you're going to get a spare with any one that you buy, and then you can replace it once. But to extend the life, I really like this. And then also I put more filters in if I want a shorter joint or a longer joint, if I got somebody with me or whatever. There's all different sizes of rolling papers that you can purchase. I usually use small ones because I'm usually smoking by myself. And so I use this brand exclusively, the Elements rice paper. It is very thin, but it works really well. And unlike cigarette papers, which are going to have a flavor to them, these have basically no flavor. And so, like, my dad has a friend who also has medical marijuana, and he uses zigzag papers to roll with, and you could just smell the smell of the rolling paper. Like with cigarettes, I don't imagine that matters, but with marijuana, you want to taste things. So rice papers are good. Raw brand makes rice papers. Elements makes rice papers. There's other brands of rice papers, but in my experience, this is the best kind. And they have several different sizes, so you can make whatever joint size you want. Once I have my filters in, which I just buy these on Amazon. You can make them easily just using like paperboard or cardboard or something. I just find it easier to get them made because they're all consistent size. Once you get that, then you just get your ground flour or your pre-ground, not ground flour, and then just load her right in there. Of course, I'm going to do the lemon zest because it's tasty. I haven't had breakfast yet, so doesn't that sound nice? Lemon for breakfast. By the way, if you are smoking for pain relief, you may end up smoking like all day long, like I do. I generally wouldn't do that unless I absolutely needed to, which I do, because once you start smoking, and especially if you smoke before you've eaten, you're gonna get extremely like lethargic, and it's really hard to get much done in a day. So once I've got the weed loaded in here, I close up the little rolling machine, and then I roll it a couple of times just to make sure that the weed is packed properly. Once you've done that, then you've got basically a nice little tube of weed here that's ready to be encased in paper. So I'll just get one of my little papers out. Now the papers are going to have gum on one side and no gum on the other side. You always want to make sure that you're facing up with your gum when you're using a rolling machine. So you're going to put the ungummed side down and then just roll it. It'll catch the paper. Now when you get about halfway down, very lightly lick the gum to get this to be sticky. Finish rolling. Roll. I usually go a few extra just to make sure. And then your joint comes out. Now, of course, it's got, in this case, because I used an extra filter to make it smaller, it's got extra filter in it. That's not a problem. That's what the tweezers are for. So you just take your tweezers, pull it right out, got your joint. Now, there's a couple of different things you can do. If you're using like a butane lighter, like a Bic lighter, which is, if you're going to use butane, Bic, Zippo, something like that, don't get cheap lighters, trust me. You just fall apart. They're a waste of your time. You may want to just leave it like this, like a tube. Then you light this, let it burn down a little bit, and then you light the actual marijuana off of this fire, so you're getting less of a butane taste. One thing that I often do, though, is I'll twist it off like this. This is good if you're going to travel. But it's also good for when you're using my preferred way of lighting, which is an electric lighter. This is just a rechargeable lighter. It's kind of like an old school cigarette lighter in a car. You open it up, gets hot, and then you can use that to ignite the paper. So, for example, now, as you're trying to light it, you're going to want to suck in. That's going to bring air through. That's also going to bring the heat and the fire down to the flower, which will catch it on fire. So let's go ahead and do that part. There we go. Now, lit, no butane. Don't have to keep buying new lighters. I just charge this one back up. Very nice. I like that. The electric lighter thing is something I've recently found out about. I love it though. So there's other things, of course, that you can get. Edibles. For example, here's a dark chocolate bar. You can get gummies, sometimes baked goods, cookies, brownies, things like that. This is going to give you a more immediate response. You're going to feel it pretty much right away. Whereas if you eat uh, marijuana products, medical cannabis products, what happens, it usually takes about half an hour for you to feel effect. So it can be a little dangerous if you're not used to it, because you might eat something, not feel anything, think, oh no, I need to eat more. And then the original one kicks in, and then the second dose kicks in. So you always want to wait a good amount of time. And when you don't talk, when you don't puff it, it goes out. But I always want to wait a while if you're eating products, and you always want to kind of take your time when it's a new edible product you haven't had before, because it might hit you different. So I would say wait at least 45 minutes if you're unfamiliar with an edible before you would consume more. Um, There's also topicals, which I love to use topicals. I have, let's see, where's my, I've got too much stuff over here. I have weed lotion that I got. Um, Comes in a container like this, but it's kind of hard to use. So I just repackage it in just a little lotion bottle. Makes it a lot easier to dispense. Um, this is unscented, just sort of basic. A lot of times you'll get balm, which is often got like a menthol. I don't like that effect, so that's why I use this specific kind. But there's also patches. I have sort of like an alcohol based kind. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really nice to have that as an option. And it's surprising how targeted it can be. Like, you might have back or hip pain, or you might have a tension headache. You put a little bit of that weed lotion or balm back here, or like on your traps or whatever, and it can really make a huge difference. And I really recommend having different products, trying them. I don't really do well with the edibles. I like to have some on hand just in case. But I really do best with cigarettes, the marijuana cigarettes joints. I don't know why that is. Pipe smoking doesn't work as well for me. And so, it's a little bit of trial and error to find out what'll work for you. Um, but I definitely recommend trying medical cannabis if you think it may work for you. It's amazing to me how many people I know that have gotten into it that I would have never necessarily expected to get into it. Like, I have an elderly aunt who is a former nurse who's using gummies to help her sleep now. Or, my one of my brother's teachers I know uses gummies. So, like, it's amazing how more accessible it is. And then the thing that's really amazing to me about it is that it is such a great option for a lot of people, like epileptics. People like me. I have a lot of pain, abdominal pain, and eating is very difficult. Taking medicine is very difficult. And so a lot of my pain management, I use medical cannabis because I can inhale it and it's not going to upset my stomach. Actually, it's going to make my stomach feel better. So, that, and like I said, in my experience, medical cannabis doctors are really good, and there's a lot of great resources online. You know, I when I was first trying to use the rolling machine, I had no idea what to do, and I just looked it up on YouTube like this. So that's my little, you know, half an hour primer for beginners on medical cannabis. You know, if anyone has any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to help out. And if you guys like this video, I can certainly make more. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this topic. So BB is telling me that she wants her LUNCH, so I better hop off here and take care of her. All right. Have a happy 420, you guys. Bye.